Thank you so much for joining me here on LinkedIn Live. My name is Makita Waterman, and today I will be giving you some personal tips that I've learned throughout life, throughout doing a lot of research, and also having a coach and mentor to help me through stressful situations in professional moments. I do believe that communication across the board is transitional, and these tips can also be used with family members, friends, strangers, etc., depending on your situation, your level of comfortability, and your confidence in being able to express yourself. So the 2 points mainly are how to tap into kindness and compassion in stressful situations, and the second part of this will be focusing on how to get your points across without burning bridges or ruining relationships in really difficult environments or situations. And just before I get started, if anybody believes that this conversation or chat could be helpful to people, please send a live stream. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. I'll tap your comment and kind of go through your question, examples, or your tips that you have to offer as well. So the first thing that we really want to do in these situations is realize that people are, of course, going through different phases and changes in life. You're on this live stream, but many people, when you continue to go throughout in the world, might not want to do personal development or find really effective ways to communicate with people. So sometimes, can't speak for yourself, but we learn something in communication, and then we kind of have this mindset that this is the standard. And then when we come across people that don't match the standard, we automatically have negative thoughts about them, or we look down on them, or we kind of avoid them at all costs. So compassion is really a mindset here, and understanding that these skills that we're all going to learn today will be helpful. So the first thing that we want to do is just really have listening skills. If this is a work or business related situation, I would like to say that just remembering things that people might have shared with you about the individual, or if you have conversations with this difficult person, is to remember any personal things that they might be going through, not necessarily to bring it up in a conversation, but it could lead to that when you lead with compassion in stressful or toxic conversations. And I say listening is really good because you'll have these kind of indicators in your mind that this person could be saying things or doing things unintentionally, and that they are conditioned, maybe experiences through childhood, or maybe they came across somebody who was really stern, like a Steve Jobs personality in their career, and they thought that aggression or intimidation or being overpowering from a communication or energy perspective is the way to get respect. So when they talk to you, they might not be picking on you personally. This might be their mental strategy to sort of get their way through their career. And as we know, in this day and time, we kind of are in a bit of a cancel culture where things like this don't necessarily fly in organizations anymore, but it still exists. So have that in mind. Also know, just fundamentally, we all have triggers. We all have certain things that happen to us that subconsciously or consciously bring us back to a really uncomfortable place, and we react instead of leaning back, having compassion, and saying, how can I turn this into a win-win solution? So I just want to keep that in mind. And sorry that the view is a little bit different today. I'm with some family, and I'm trying to keep it a little quiet, but hopefully the message will still get through. So the other thing that we need to keep in mind too is that when somebody's being difficult with you at work, they really are, when you take out the anger or whatever the situation is, the words that they're using, they're really trying to just solve a problem. And I know that's easier said than done, to think, okay, this person might be aggressive with me, or it might be a toxic situation that is transpiring within seconds or minutes. And it will be kind of hard to think it through in this way in the moment, but we have to keep in mind that when difficult situations or conversations come, there's always kind of like a goal in mind. But the goal truly is to get to the objective as to why they're talking to you, why they're coming to you, And when you can kind of quickly think, how can I think about what it is that they want, then we can really get down to some solutions. So here are some examples. Let's say I remember, I wouldn't say not too long ago, but before the pandemic, I do remember talking with somebody who was just naturally known as being difficult. I was a consultant at the time, working with other consultants in a company. And this is basically how this individual got through her day. This is how she got stuff done. This is in her mind, she thought this was the way to be successful and potentially be promoted, right? And so one day, instead of taking it personal or just kind of allowing her to dump her anger and her aggression and her negativity on me, I just asked her, "Are you okay?" And I wasn't trying to turn this into a therapy session. It was just like, "Is everything okay? What exactly is it that you need?" And again, these kind of questions of neutrality are very difficult when somebody's coming at you, but try to put yourself in the person's shoes. Now, when you say that, I can't speak for you if you've ever used this before, but I've had people come to me and say, "Oh my God, I was rushing out of the door today. I couldn't get my daughter to school." People will actually start telling you why they might be coming across a certain way, or they might get a little defensive and they might say, "Why? What do you mean?" And you could just say, "Oh, you know, you sound a little bit different than usual," or "I can tell something might be on your mind. Is there something you want to talk about?" And if somebody actually feels comfortable to open up to you, let them go on for maybe 30 seconds, depending on the situation, and then not necessarily cut them off, but when they stop to take a breath, then after about 30 seconds, 15 seconds, I don't know what your threshold of taking in people's problems are, but then say, "Okay, so what can we do as a team?" Now, it's not a therapy session, it's just, "Are you okay? You sound a little bit different than usual." They might start spilling out why they're upset. And now you're like, you wait for, give them an opportunity to finish what they're going to say, or maybe take a breath. And then you quickly will say, "How can we solve this and make this a win win situation for ourselves and the team?" And I believe that's a really great way of doing things. Now, let's take, for example, this is a boss or someone in your personal life that um, is just a difficult person. I'll just put it in those words. But you've kind of had your breaking point, and they're coming to you about something you did or didn't do, said or didn't say. It doesn't matter what the situation is, because again, most difficult conversations really come down to sharing something that bothered the other person or is frustrating them. It could be a job related thing or personal, and then coming back to a solution. But I must say, everyone on the line that doesn't necessarily want to kind of break into a compassionate question or a neutral question, um, the reason why you want to do that is, with most people, this will break down a wall and they might start looking at you differently. They might go around the office or their place of business and treat other people a certain way. But when it comes to you, because you asked them that neutral question, "Are you okay? You seem a little bit different today." And then they spilled out what they're going through. They now look at you as somebody who actually cares. You're not just looking at them as a number, a boss, an entrepreneur that's running the company. They're kind of looking at you differently. So when they come to you again, they might not be as angry. They might not be as aggressive. They might actually say, "You know what? I'm having a really, really rough day today, and I'm sorry if I come across as rude." Now they're kind of treating you differently. And again, I'm not saying all difficult people or people who don't know how to effectively communicate with respect or compassion, shall I say. Not all of them are going to do this, but most of them will, because you just kind of broke down a barrier, got them into a little bit of a soft space, and now there's a very high chance that they'll come to you and approach you a bit differently. So another way of tapping into compassion is just really kind of take the title of that person out of the scenario. Take the title of them being an entrepreneur. Take the title of them being a difficult, angry, the office bully out of your head. Because as long as that person works there and you work there, it's very unlikely, unless they leave the company, that you're going to evade and avoid this person at all costs, especially if they're on your team. So try to take that title of them being angry, a bully, mean, because if you are driving to work every day and you see an intersection and it's a busy intersection and you call that intersection the worst intersection in the city, there's a high chance that when before you get to that intersection, when you see it, it's going to be associated with something negative. Your neurological brain and your energy and your feelings will change, and you're probably going to end up getting to that intersection when there's lots of traffic, maybe construction, maybe accidents, compared to the average person who just thinks it's just an intersection in the city and that's about it, right? So once you take that label off of the person, another way that you can approach it if you don't really want to hear what they have to say or have them spill a little bit of their situation is you could say something very neutral like, wow, I didn't really think of it that way, but it is a little bit loud. How about we have this conversation when we're both in a better frame of mind? You can also approach it that way. That way, you're not storming off and walking off, or kind of allowing them to talk, and then you're kind of setting a boundary without calling them a name, etc. Another way that you can go about it is if your feelings are kind of getting flustered, is you can say, I feel very overwhelmed right now. Can we set a meeting at such and such day at such and such time and have this conversation when I can at least take a walk or get some coffee or get my notes together? That's another way of not necessarily running away from the situation, but that's another way of saying, not right now. Let's do this when I'm more organized, I'm more refreshed, I'm in a better state of mind, right? So you're not blaming and pointing fingers at this person. You're kind of taking your own accountability and saying, not right now. Let's have this conversation at another time. So I believe that the feeling statements, I feel overwhelmed, or wow, I feel surprised that this is coming up. Let's talk about it. Now, when you kind of talk to a difficult person as if you're their best friend, let's sit down and talk about, come on, bring your coffee with you. And again, I know that having these kind of like conversations where you start talking to them as if they're your mother or your brother can be difficult, because this person or these situations can happen at a time when you're not really prepared. But again, they're a human being just like everybody else. And I do think that the kind of friendly tone is also very helpful too. And it can kind of get them from a 10, of anger or frustration or aggravation down to maybe a 5, a 2, a 1, or maybe a 0. We just never know, right? If anybody has any tips or advice on how they kind of turn negative conversations or situations into something positive when emotions and thoughts are running, please leave them below. So let's kind of go into some other ways of looking at it too. So if there is somebody that is consistently, they're just labeled and everybody kind of knows them as having this kind of a personality, the other way that you can kind of look at it is, instead of internalizing it and thinking you're the problem or you're the victim, because once you get into victim mode, you kind of lose your ability to stand strong like a tree with roots dug in the ground. Not sure if you've heard of those trees in the Amazon, or to all my Canadians or people that have been to Vancouver or British Columbia, when you go into these national forests in British Columbia, they have these huge forests where the trunks are, I can't even tell you how wide they are. They're huge. And I can imagine that they have very, very strong roots that are tied into maybe hundreds, who knows, tens, I don't know how deep it goes into the ground, but they're strong. So I think what I'm trying to say is that you can do your best also personally to get yourself to a place where a person is just a person, whether they're the CEO, they're not an executive, they are with the job title, but that doesn't mean that that's kind of like how you could look at things too, because you can easily get intimidated by people who are coming at you in a certain way and they have a certain job title, but to just look at them as a human being and understand that this is all they know. or they're just really going through a really, really tough patch in their life, and this is how they're coming across in the moment. Also, too, just also knowing that we all have our moments. It might not be communication that's uncomfortable, that will be received as uncomfortable to other people, but we do all have our moments, and we all make mistakes. Um, and that's another way of looking at it too. So I'll just recap on that. If you notice that this person does this to everybody, no matter their age, gender, etc., then you don't have to personalize it, sorry, and tell yourself that this person is bullying you. You now just label it as this is who this person is, and there's nothing that you can really do to change them. Now, some people might want to get revenge. All my people on the line who feel like they gotta get this person, they gotta bring it to HR. Now, if it's really an aggressive situation. I'm not sure if going to HR initially at first, when this person first starts talking to you, is a good idea, because most likely they're probably going to tell you, or if you go to your boss, they're probably going to tell you, have you told this person how you think? Have you told this person how you feel? And you know what I mean? Because we're all grown adults. And even if we're not always the best communicators, at least starting off with a insightful conversation with this person is what HR and your boss it is kind of might end up telling you to do, right? So if so that's the other thing. So you notice they do it to other people, you don't personalize it, know that we are all doing our best. um, Most schools don't teach effective communications skills. Yes, there are journalists, but who's to know that your favorite journalist on your favorite broadcast station is the best communicator when they go home? You know, journalism is just to report the news. So yes, now we're in a day and age where we have courses and stuff online, but just keep in mind that someone like yourself is doing the work, taking that first step. But most people are probably not going to try to find a way to improve their communication skills unless their back is up against the wall, metaphorically, and they're in a situation where they kind of have no choice. So, the last thing that I really want to leave you with is you can run, you can hide from difficult people, but the interesting thing about the universe is they will always pop up, in maybe not at work, but they will always come at some point in your life. Great, communicators and not the best communicators. They're everywhere, in your grocery store, on your walking path, they're in your family, etc. So these are things that you can't necessarily run away from. But I can tell you that the best communicators on the planet almost get everything they want, or in their mind they believe they get everything they want, because they know how to deal with different people at the drop of the hat. And I know I'm down to my last 2 minutes, but I think this also comes down to, if you are the kind of person who is responsive and, or sorry, reactive, not responsive, but reactive, and you do react negatively to negative situations at work, let's say, it's time to kind of ask yourself, where is that coming from? And what is it that I can do as a working professional and a grown adult to fix that trigger? Because again, there's always going to be difficult people, and we cannot change them. It's not our job to shame them, to tell them they're wrong, unless you're speaking about a specific situation that is tied to you. And it's not your job to wake up one day and take a bunch of courses or do some coaching and then think that everybody around you is going to transform like you, because you've transformed. And so taking some accountability and telling yourself that these situations bother you versus somebody who goes through these situations on the regular and it doesn't bother them is a great opportunity to improve and find out how you can kind of do some inner work so that you get to a point where difficult people are just like everyone else. They're just like relaxed people. They're just like people who you appreciate being around. They're just like everybody else, that they just do things differently and think differently. And I think that when you get that mindset part uh, in check, should I say, or on point or on autopilot, and you see a difficult person, that compassion kind of comes in, or you can ask yourself, how can I reply and respond, not react, but respond to this person so that they hear me, they feel my thoughts, they also want to be solution driven versus an argument or really burning bridges with somebody who could fundamentally really help you out in the end. So, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that the tips and advice that I shared here are helpful. Um, I do believe that some of these phrases and things that I had shared earlier can really be a starting point. And the idea is not to use these phrases that I shared earlier as manipulation to get what you want, because it's really about how can we both get what we want? How can myself and this difficult person, or myself in this difficult environment or situation, get what we both want? But I think fundamentally, it's always going to lead back to you, because you're the one that's receiving the message. You're the one that's thinking something. You're the one that's reacting, or sorry, react, reacting to something. And at the end of the day, there's always going to be a moment in time in life where you kind of have to deal with these people and work with them and get to a point where you don't necessarily have to become friends or best friends, but you can work amicably with people. Or if they're just rough, because as we know, some certain people, certain cultures, they just speak a little bit more, but it's not necessarily a negative thing. It's just a part of the culture. And if you have to work with the boss who's a little bit more aggressive, and every time they talk to you, you're taking it personal, it's not necessarily the boss at this point, because that's who they are. And unless they're doing work behind the scenes that you don't know about, they'll probably be like that for the rest of their life. So to switch jobs, switch departments, I promise you, if you are unable to get this right at some point in life, or at least take it down from, I really want to avoid every difficult person in my life, and bring it down to difficult people are just like me. They just do things differently. And who am I to judge, right? On your worst day, on our worst day, we're not always going to be the best at everything and say the best things and express yourself in the best way. But if somebody is just regularly like that, instead of pointing fingers and complaining about them when you come home, because believe it or not, these people, they might not consciously know what they are doing, or they might, but they don't know how to fix it. So they will continue to be this person. And while you're at home on the phone complaining to family and friends that this person said this and did this, and every day or every week you're talking about them, this person is moving forward with their life, probably not even thinking about that same conversation you're talking about. But you're spending your time and energy focusing on something or someone that you really can't change, but you can only change yourself. So, anyways, thank you so much for joining me today on this Sunday. And if you have any questions, leave them below in the comments. Feel free to send a direct message if you'd like. And if you have any ideas for upcoming live streams, please let me know. Thanks so much for joining in today, and take care. Bye.